Good morning, Greyhounds. My name is Logan Wong, your host and usual producer of this show, stepping into the chair today. I'm joined by Nate Swick. He's from Visit Indy. He's the Senior Communications Manager there. He attended Butler University, earning his degree in Public Relations and Advertising. In 2021, he was named to the Indiana Business Journal's 20 in their 20s. So Nate, how are you doing today?
Hey, doing well. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, awesome. So have you ever made your way over to UND before?
I actually have not been on, I've driven through, but I've never been on campus. So it was good to be back on a college campus again, you know?
Yeah. You parked all right and everything?
Parking was good. Yeah,
Okay.
Beautiful morning. Everything's good.
Yeah. So last week when I was talking to Louisa Macer, I neglected to tell her where to park. So I didn't have my computer on me at the time. So I was on my phone. I pulled up a map on my phone. I downloaded it. I drew a little box to where to park and pointed it to it. I debated on sending it to you.
You should have. I would have used it, but I pulled in and I was like, can't park here. So I just parked in a nearby neighborhood. It felt good.
Okay.
A little, like a 2-minute walk.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, but speaking of Louisa Macer, she was also named to the Indiana Business Journal's 20 in their 20s, in the same class as you.
Yes, yeah. So Louisa is an incredible community partner of mine, great friend of mine. It's really cool to kind of come up in the same class per se of up-and-coming leaders in the city. And so we work with them. We work with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway a lot, obviously, on many events throughout the year, but including Indy 500. And so she's incredible, does a great job with community relations and getting out into the community over at the Motor Speedway. So lucky to have her in the city, that's for sure.
Right. While we're on the topic, can you talk a little bit about how Visit Indy works with the Indy 500?
Yeah, so most people, when you ask somebody anywhere in the world what they know of when they think about Indianapolis, they're going to say Indy 500. They're going to say racing. That's the first thing that anybody around the country and beyond ever thinks of when they think of Indy is racing. And so it's great that they know something. And so we're pumped up about the race every single year. I mean, it is the largest single-day sporting event in the world. Obviously, more than 300,000 visitors coming every single year. And so it's a big visitor attraction. So it's a big thing. Obviously, a lot of locals come to it as well. But then it is our #1 leisure visitation day of the year. And so we have an incredible asset out there with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway that we like to kind of capitalize on throughout the year. And they do an incredible job of activating the track and the speedway year-round now. It used to be really pretty dead outside of just the month of May and then maybe one other race throughout the year, but they've done a good job of activating it year-round. The museum out there has kind of grown over the last decade, and it's really fun experience for visitors and locals alike. And so we work with them year-round, but really this time as we're ramping up for the month of May, and how can we get excited? What's going on? What's new at the track this year? It's always fun when there's unique storylines surrounding the race. There's such an international draw for the race too, that's kind of our one chance to dig into getting international visitors to Indianapolis, because we're mostly a regional destination, and so we get a majority of our visitors from Chicago, St. Louis, Nashville, Cincinnati, but Indy 500 is kind of our biggest chance to get visitors from all around the world. And so Indy is on a global stage during the month of May, and so it's great to have that partnership with the Indy 500, with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, to make sure that we showcase Indy in its best light. And so it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work as we ramp up for the entire month of May, but we're lucky to have great community partners in them, and we're excited for the month of, it's what, almost time.
Yeah,
it's right around the corner.
Yep. So you talk about global engagement, getting people from all over the world, and it helps that a lot of the drivers are from Formula One, other NASCAR, other countries, and there was also the naturalization ceremony there a couple years ago that Louisa actually headed. So
yeah, absolutely. So I think, once again, Louisa, when she came on board over there, she kind of took their international relations and just community relations to that next level. And so that's really fun to see her grow in that experience over there. But then it is, they've become kind of an international hub for us, because a lot of people have never heard of Indy, and then their favorite driver might switch from F1 or F2 to IndyCar, and then this is the Super Bowl of racing. And so they're like, oh, Indianapolis, never thought to go there. And so sometimes that's people's first introduction to the city, is seeing their favorite driver on the track at IMS. And so then after that, they might think about coming back. And that's our goal, is to get visitors into the city, but through any means necessary. But a lot of times, Indy 500 is that first thing people think of and then decide to come back for other reasons.
So we're going to backtrack a little bit, talk
Yeah.
about your journey from Butler to where you are at Visit Indy. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I graduated from Butler, like you said, with strategic communications, so PR and advertising majors. I actually, now Butler has a sports program too, and I would have probably dabbled in the sports side of things because that's what I thought I wanted to do with my life, was dig into sports. And so in college, I interned with the NCAA. Which was really fun. I got to go to 2 NCAA women's Final Fours and kind of get hands-on for what goes into putting on a major sporting event. And that was the first time that I really realized that there are entities in every city charged with getting visitors and pulling off these events. So that was my first introduction to the tourism world, because growing up I didn't know that there was a Visit Indy. I grew up in Elkhart, Indiana. There's a Visit Elkhart, Indiana, and that's something that
Really?
you don't
Wow.
you don't think of that. And so there's something like that for every city or every county in the country. And so through my experience with the NCAA, I was first introduced to kind of the tourism, the Convention Visitors Bureau world. And I was like, this is incredible. I'd love to explore this. And then I interned with Visit Indy and came on full time shortly after graduation, which kind of was a happy marriage between my love for sports and then my eventual love for tourism and the economic impact of events and visitation, because Indy hosts so many major sporting events that I still get to have my hands in a lot of those experiences, serving on local organizing committees for all the Big Ten football, Big Ten basketball, Final Fours. I had a really cool role last year for the College Football Playoff National Championship, where I got to co-lead the communications for that event. And I've never worked harder, I think, in my life, never worked more hours. I actually didn't even drink coffee until then, and now it made me drink coffee, and now I'm hooked on coffee. But
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun and an incredible experience to kind of see the ins and outs and the inner workings of what it takes to put on a major sporting event like that, and the impact that it leaves on the community, and how that ties back to what Louisa does for a living, because it's all about community relations and what is the impact that this event is going to leave on the city. And so from a convention / major sporting event standpoint, that's always something we're thinking about. So that's been a highlight of my short career thus far, is playing a role in some of those major events and helping grow the Big Ten basketball championships or the Big Ten football, because that Big Ten football has never been anywhere else than Indianapolis. And so every year we got to think, how can we make this better than it was the year before? How can we grow this event without reinventing it, because it works and it sells out, but how can we make it better so that they never want to leave?
So you're originally from Indiana?
Yep, I grew up in northern Indiana,
Okay.
so Elkhart, Indiana, and then came down here for Butler, and now, I've been here more than a decade if you count my college experience. So I like to think Indy is my home now, and I've been with Visit Indy for almost 7 years. So it's been a lot of fun. Like I said, it was an industry that I wasn't completely sure existed growing up. But my favorite part about kind of what we do, at its core, we are charged with getting visitors to the city. So we are charged with taking a step back, you look at COVID and you look at what that did to all industries, but nobody was traveling. And because nobody was traveling, Indy is a city that tourism is big business. We have more than 85,000 people who rely on tourism for a paycheck here in the city. So you look at COVID, when tourism stopped, none of those people are making a paycheck. And so that kind of puts it into perspective as to what the meaning behind what we do is, because we are about creating that economic impact, but also creating these jobs and fueling the core of downtown and the city proper, because without tourism, this city's not going to go around.
Yeah. So getting to your job specifically, what sorts of things do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, I'm senior communications manager. So we have 2 people on our team who are charged mostly with public relations. And public relations at its core is relating with the public, relating with the media. Media relations is a piece of that. And so on a day-to-day basis, it is my job to enhance the perception of Indianapolis through working with media for the most part, and community partners as well. I play in a couple different roles, but on a day-to-day basis, I'm working with media mostly in the Midwest. So I mentioned how a majority of our visitors come from that drive-in market. So we get more visitors from Chicago than any other city in the country. And so Chicago's a key market for us. Detroit, Cincinnati, Louisville, Nashville, kind of those like 5-hour drive in and in are our major leisure markets. Those are the markets that people come to Indy for fun. Conventions, it's a little different because they could be coming from all over the world, really. But on the leisure side, we're working in those markets. So I'm working with the different newspapers, magazines, radio stations, TV stations in all of those markets to earn some ink and earn some publicity for what's going on in Indy and why should people care. So the dream is always to get a cover story in Columbus Monthly magazine or the Nashville newspaper about the food scene in Indianapolis and why people should come out and see it. And so in a perfect world, somebody sitting in their kitchen in St. Louis picks up St. Louis magazine, reads a road trip to Indianapolis story, and they're like, oh, I had no idea the Bottle Works Hotel exists, or the world's largest children's museum is in Indy, like I want to take my kids there, and then they book a trip, hop in their car, and come to Indy. So that's kind of the goal of what we do on a day in and day out, or what I do from a public relations standpoint. So it's really about building those relationships with media. Regional media is a big piece, but I also work with our local media scene too. So anytime we have a big event in the city, we all just worked on the NFL Combine. So we've been lucky to have the Combine here in Indy for more than 3 decades. And when it's here, we kind of serve as the spokespeople for the city about the event. And so I got to wake up at 3:30 a.m. and go out to Lucas Oil Stadium and run the 40-yard dash with the local reporters and throw the footballs and really just get people pumped up and excited about the fan experiences and how you can go out to Lucas Oil Stadium and watch the Combine and how kids can come out. And so building those relationships with the local media is also really important, and that's something that I do love because we have a lot of stories to tell, and so they're curious about what's the economic impact of a college football playoff, what's the economic impact of this chemical event that's in the city this weekend. How is this affecting the city? Will it affect traffic? How many hotel rooms are being used? All that stuff. And so building relationships with local media is just as important. Even though that's not focused on visitation, big picture, we're all here about destination management and how do we make Indy a better place to live, work, play, and visit.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
your job is pretty intense. You get the early call times of us media people and
No, it's fun though. It really is, and I think I love media relations. I love public relations. On the public relations side, we also have to build relationships with our local community leaders and civic leaders and like the mayor's office, the governor's office. We have to make sure that we're all on the same page about hosting some of these major events and protocols. That was key during COVID too, to make sure we were all on the same page. Indy was really successful during COVID because we were able to host more events than any other city in the country because we were on the same page with our government and with our city leaders. And so we went to Chicago groups that Chicago said, yeah, we can't host you. And we said, hey, we'll do it, and here's the plan. Here's how we'll do it safely. Here's how we'll do it successfully. And now some of those groups came to Indy in 2021 and aren't going back to Chicago because they had such a good event here in Indianapolis and they loved the experience and they loved the city, the Hoosier hospitality. The community really spoke to them, and so now they're doing their events in Indy. So, at its core, it's all about relationships. And so how can you build those relationships with media, with civic leaders, with community leaders, with government leaders? So it's big business, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that sounds really amazing. We'll have more from Nate Swick here on UND TV.
Man, we gotta take Bryce Young, right?
What did you say?
No, it's Bryce Young. It's obviously Bryce Young.
C.J. Stroud, the obvious pick for Steichen and the Colts.
Ohio State quarterbacks, we know they don't win.
Come on, he's got the whole offense handed to him. Check out Last Call. We've got all the sports info you need from around the nation and right here on campus, plenty of UND sports.
College football and college basketball.
The NFL.
The NBA.
MLB.
Don't forget about motorsports.
And I'll give you all the gambling picks you need to know to make some money right here on Last Call, Mondays at 4 o'clock on YouTube.
The world's a crazy place, and it's only getting crazier. And it seems like no one wants to talk about it. So I'm going to. That's why I created Real Talk, a roundtable discussion show where each week I bring on different guests to talk about hot button issues in society. Join me every week to get your questions answered, Wednesdays at 1 p.m.
Hey, it's Giselle here on 88.7 WICR.
88.7 The Diamond, the only jazz and classical station in Indianapolis, completely led by the students of the University of Indianapolis. Listen to us on iHeartRadio, TuneIn app, FM radio, HD radios, or even on our website at wicronline.org, a different kind of public radio.
Welcome back to Good Morning Greyhounds. My name is Logan Wong. I'm here with Nate Swick. Nate was just talking about the various media relations there are. So what's the hardest part about all of that?
I think one thing that I never had thought about before coming to Visit Indy was being on the radio. And every single morning I start my day on the radio in different markets talking about what's going on in Indy. And that, I wouldn't say today it's as hard, but earlier in my career, it was much more difficult. Think about how many people are listening to me in XYZ city this morning. And I would have to get up from my desk and go into a meeting room by myself. And then I realized, if there's this many people listening on the radio, I don't care who around me is listening. But what that has taught me is public speaking. It's taught me a lot of public speaking skills. It's taught me to think on your feet, because sometimes you're live and they ask you questions and you don't know the answer, but you got to figure it out and you got to say something. So being prepared for those is important. But I think I had never thought that I would be on the radio every single day, and that's something that I've definitely, it's become easier, but that's been a challenge, definitely. And that has helped me, though, as now I'm on the radio every day, but then also TV and stuff, and that has helped with public speaking and being able to think on your feet, because that's something that you really can only learn from experience.
I completely understand, trust me. This is this hosting thing is not my wheelhouse. I'm usually behind the camera running the show, putting everything together, but
hey, you're killing it though.
Appreciate it. So talking a little bit about specific events, what sorts of things, how do you get people to come to them?
Yeah, so Indy at its core, we're a major convention city, and so we definitely have some great leisure options. Like I mentioned earlier, the world's largest kids museum, we've got an incredible zoo, an incredible art museum, we've got a great beer and food scene, and so really a lot to get excited about from a leisure perspective. But at our core, I mean, we're a city that was built to host events, and so we have a rich history of hosting sporting events, but that is kind of, and we still do that today, and that's still a key piece of who we are and our identity. But we're also hosting so many major events that aren't sporting events every single year. And so you think about some of our biggest ones, be it FFA, the Future Farmers of America, you've got FDIC, the International Fire Department Conference, you have Gen Con, one of the largest, those are probably our three largest conventions, alongside PRI, which is a big racing one, so performance racing industry that meets at the end of every single year. So those are some of our annuals that they've booked conventions to be here year after year after year. And then we kind of fill in. I mean, this year alone, we'll have more than 575 conventions and events in the city in one calendar year. And so that's actually almost back to our numbers of 2019, where we were just over 600. So pre-COVID numbers, we're almost 100% back to that, which is incredible because a lot of cities are still hurting from COVID. So at its core, we're focused on how can we fill the convention center, fill our hotels, and boost the economic impact. And so once again, I keep talking about relationships, but why do we have so many strong annuals? Because we've built those relationships and because people love Indy, and once they're here, they don't want to leave. And so Gen Con has been here for so many years. FDIC has been here for many years. I mentioned the Combine being here for more than 3 decades. You hold an event in Indy and you realize how much the community cares and how everybody comes together to pull this off. Nobody really wants to take the credit either, which I think is really cool, is nobody cares who gets credit for the success of these events. It's just a citywide activation. And so big picture, I mean, we're looking at booking events right now well into the 2030s. I mean, a lot of these groups book 5 to 10 years out. And so a challenge is definitely thinking about what's Indy going to look like in 2033. And I mean, obviously it'll be much different, but being able to sell somebody on a city that, I mean, the city exists, but what we look like in 10 years is going to be very different than what we look like today. And so a lot of it is just really working on kind of not a guessing game, but really working on what are these big projects that the city is working on. Think about this new convention hotel that's going to be going in, and a new convention center expansion across the way from the current convention center. And so that's something that we can promise to future conventions, saying, look at all this more room, look at all this incredible hotel. So we always got to be thinking big picture and thinking a lot ahead. But then after all that, I mean, we're booking groups right now for December of this year. So you got to think big picture, but then also there are some smaller groups that might have a couple 100-person event that they haven't booked yet, and it's happening in 8 months. And so we got to think much smaller term there. And a lot of those are looking for different things. I mean, the bigger groups are obviously looking for to use every inch of everything happening in the city, whereas some of the smaller ones just need a ballroom at the JW Marriott, or just need a couple of meeting rooms at the Bottle Works Hotel. And so got to be able to understand the expectations of all these different groups. So we're lucky to have a really strong convention services, convention sales team at Visit Indy who are working day in and day out to fill the convention center, to fill these hotels, and to work with these groups to convince them that Indy is the best place to hold their event. And why is that? I mean, Indy, the words we always get: clean, safe, walkable. Those aren't sexy words, but they're true. And Indy is clean, safe, walkable. That makes for a good convention. That makes for a good event. I mean, we also have a lot of great amenities, and most cities, if you want to go to like a football game, a baseball stadium, a basketball arena, you usually have to Uber, drive, take public transportation outside of the city. All that is so close downtown Indianapolis that it makes visiting the city just a breeze for any of these major events, because a lot of them do use all those different venues for their events. And that's why, once again, the Combine loves Indy, because everything is right there. They can go get their steak at St. Elmo, or their fiery shrimp cocktail at St. Elmo Steakhouse, cross the street into Lucas Oil Stadium, and then not go outside again to go into the convention center and into their hotels, because everything's connected through the skywalks. So even if it's 0 degrees out, Indy is still a great place to hold the groups.
So we were actually able to go on campus the other day and ask students a little bit about what they like to do outside of UIndy. So let's take a look.
I'm Hannah Hurley, and I'm standing here in Schweitzer Student Center asking what students do in their free time outside of class. I'm here with Kenna Machino. Kenna, can you please just enlighten me as to what kind of things you do outside of school, specifically not on campus?
I like to go out and eat downtown. I like to go to concerts as well.
So where's your favorite restaurant to go to downtown? You can even give me top 2.
St. Elmo's, #1, no competition.
What other concerts have you been to downtown specifically?
My favorite one that I went to Zach Bryan right at the beginning of the school year.
Awesome. If you could tell anyone to go do anything in downtown Indy, what would your biggest suggestion be?
I would say go watch the Pacers play. I love watching them. Or if there's concerts, especially in the fall when the weather is really nice, at White River State Park.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
I would say workout.
I would say working. Like, I have a job downtown.
I'm usually working, or if not that, playing sports, being active.
Awesome. So you said that you have a job downtown. Where do you work downtown?
I work at Harriet and Izzy Circle Center.
Very cool. So whenever you guys go downtown, what kind of things do you like to do?
I like to look at the lights, like the downtown lights, and just walk around.
I like riding the scooters with my friends.
I like looking at all the different restaurants. I'm a foodie. I love to eat.
Have you guys ever been to any concerts downtown?
I went to the Astroworld concert back in high school.
I went with him also.
I'm actually about to go to my first concert, the Future concert, with April 7th. So, yeah.
That's really cool. So I hope you have a great time at that concert. If you could tell anyone who's going to go downtown to do something really fun, what would your biggest suggestion be?
Ooh. I know there's an escape room down there, so I'll probably say go to the escape room with your friends.
I'll say ride scooters with your friends. It's like so fun, and the price is not that bad.
Bring coins for parking.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. I'm here with the Derek Jones. Derek, I'm so curious, what do you do in your free time, and like specifically off campus of UIndy?
Okay, I'm a commuter. I work 2 jobs. I work downtown with the Pacers and then an alumni house here on campus. And then I work out every day. I'm involved in archery, so I shoot in my backyard, and then I babysit.
That's awesome. So obviously you work with the Pacers like you just said, so you must be downtown a lot. Do you do any other events downtown other than go to the Pacers games?
Not really. I really don't be around downtown, mostly in this area because of schooling, and then just my side of town.
Have you been to any concerts or conventions in the downtown Indy area?
I actually have never been to a concert. Yeah. Well, love to go see a Bruno Mars one, but yeah.
Big fan of Bruno?
Yeah, big fan.
Have you ever been to like Gen Con? Do you know what that is?
No, I do not know what that is.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Sometimes I go party, sometimes because I'm 21, so I be going to the club. Most likely I just work. I work at Ross, so that's mainly what I do.
Do you ever go downtown, maybe like concerts?
I'm trying to go to more concerts for real, but mainly I go downtown.
Okay, what's your favorite place to go to downtown?
I like this bar named Burns. It's like it's called Burns by Rocky Patel. It's pretty nice. You just go in there, and you just go in there and mingle with a lot of people. You know, get like a lot of connections. You know.
Have you ever been to any like conventions? Like, have you ever been to Gen Con? Do you know what that is?
I know what Gen Con is, but I never went. I want to go though. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for your time.
No problem.
So it really helps that a lot of students are around UIndy. So we have around Indianapolis. So we have UIndy, we have Marion, Butler, IUPUI. So a lot of students get out into the city.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what the first girl, Zach Bryan, that's my favorite artist. And so I was at that concert at White River State Park. But I think having so many universities close by to the downtown core is beneficial to the downtown core, but also the universities. I think one of the coolest things about going to school in a major city is the access and the opportunities. I mean, you saw these students talk about a lot of them had jobs downtown, or they come downtown for fun or to see a show or to explore White River State Park, go to a Pacers game. If you go to a school that is not near a major city, you don't have access to any of that stuff. And I think that's what kind of sets some of these schools apart from maybe a Ball State and Muncie, is a little bit harder to kind of engage with the core community. Whereas when you're here in Indianapolis at IUPUI, at UIndy, you have access to the downtown core to set you up for your future. You can do the internships, you can have the jobs, you can really experience what city life is like. And so for schools, I think that's a big benefit. But then for us, as Visit Indy and as the city of Indianapolis, it's also a benefit because we want to keep that talent here in Indianapolis and we want to grow that talent in Indy. And so how can we make Indy a desirable place for students to stay post-graduation? So that's something we're always thinking about. Not exactly 100% in our lane at Visit Indy, but working with the community. I mean, we're all about destination management. And so like I said earlier, how do we make this a better place to live, work, play, visit? And that goes into it. So how do we keep people like you in Indianapolis, whereas you want to stay after graduation? So that's something we're also always thinking about.
So I have to touch a little bit on Gen Con. Gen Con is probably one of the biggest conventions. It's the biggest Gen Con convention in North America. There's 50,000 people that come. It generates over $50 million for the city. But last year they mentioned that because of the recent abortion ban, they just had concerns about returning to Indianapolis. So can you comment a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Gen Con, for those who don't know, it's the largest tabletop gaming convention in North America. So it is massive, and if you're ever downtown during this event in August, you know it's happening because people are dressed up, and it's a very interesting time. Our offices are in the convention center, and people are, I mean, I don't even know the best way. It's a party. It's a lot of fun in there. But the best 4 days in gaming happen in August, and this event has been in Indy for quite some time. It, like you said, brings more than 50,000 people to the city, major economic impact. And so they're actually based out west. They're based in Seattle, and so how have we built this relationship over the years? They had an event in Indy and realized this is centrally located, a lot of people can get here, and we pulled it off better than any other city could. And so people love having Gen Con in Indianapolis. But with that, once again, we always got to be thinking about what's next. They're always coming to us as everybody wants to host Gen Con. Chicago's saying, hey, Gen Con, you should be coming here. Every single year, they're having people reach out to them saying, why don't you think about moving that convention? And so, yeah, this past year when There were some questions and conversations about the abortion bill. Gen Con did say, hey, we don't agree with this, and we love when people stand up for what they believe in. And we're going to hear out every question, every comment, every concern, and really work, like I said, with our city officials, city leaders, to do our best to make them understand that Indy welcomes all, and Indy is the place to be, and that we will be hospitable and welcoming to their constituents and their attendees, and that Indy welcomes all. So that's really at the core of it, and we're excited to continue that relationship and work with them to ensure that they feel welcome and excited to hold that event for many years to come.
Well, thanks for joining us. That's all the time we have for today. Join us next week. We have Mariana Folkrod coming on the show. That's Good Morning Greyhounds. I'm Logan Wong.